There's something seriously amiss with all the clocks here, because one of my computers, my laptop says it's... Oh, now it's turned into 8 o'clock. My phone says it's 1 minute past. The joy. The joy of the madness, eh? Let's click some buttons. Get rid of all that stuff. Dum, da, dum, da, dum. We will then hit that button there. Oh, hey, there we go. For those of you watching on the catch-up, oh dear, hang on a second, it's right by my feet. That's going to be a real problem moving around. This is the joy of hosting things in the library here at BOTW Towers, is that every so often you almost get tripped up by a series of Dr. Seuss books. Kids, eh? Yes, for those of you watching on the catch-up, the magic word for the comments if you're on catch-up is bright, BRIGTH. So if you're doing your bit on catch-up, stick that word in the comments and join in with the warm-up question as well of who your all-star team is for the league that you watch, and then we will rock on and just get to catch you folk who like watching on the catch up and still do. Massively appreciate all of you lot. We'll just let folk come in because of course the tweets and the links and everything like that are out. Just have a quick swig of water as well. And boy, did we have a weekend, so we will talk through that. But let's face it, we know why most of you are here. We're just going to check that the bits and pieces have gone live, because such is the joy of all these bits and pieces. That's working, which is what we wanted, so that's fine. Just going to check Discord. A few people chucking in their picks already. John, who's in there, of course. John, who is in the chat, who won our raffle. John got 2 tickets to the Steel City Showdown, which he has managed to claim, so which was a little bit of a concern, I won't lie. But yes, we are rocking and rolling on that front. Just going to post the link in one last place. There we go. But a few people getting involved. So what's John got from South 1? John's got South 1. Carol's got North 1, of course, in there. Feels a little bit one-sided on that one, Carol. I can't lie. G, my NHL netty is Max Wright because Gospel is a ball pick. That's a little bit harsh on Sammy Gospel, who, let's face it, is superb. Anyway, here's a good hotel near there. Actually, that's the other thing you could put in the chat, because John, having won the tickets to this All City Showdown, now has to find himself a hotel for Sheffield. So if you've got your hotel picks for Sheffield, stick them in the chat, and John, or stick them in the comments, and John can check back on it later. National Division folk coming in. Jamie, good to see you as always. Because yeah, we got some fun bits and pieces to do today. I am just very, very quickly, Joe, just going to make sure that I've got the Elite League bits and pieces, because Five nearly threw a massive spanner in the works a few minutes ago, but that does appear to have turned around. Awesome. Right, we will leave that for the minute, because looking at the time, and because, like I say, for some reason my phone and my laptop don't appear to match up time-wise, so we're just going to kind of get on with it. There we go, fantastic. Guys, gals, and the gender fluid and all beyond the binary, it is Wednesday night, it is 8 PM, and welcome back once again to the BOTW What's Current stream. My name is Anthony Russell, here to bring you through the weird, wonderful and wacky world that is the National Ice Hockey League structure here in Great Britain. We focus on the National Division, that is our bread and butter, that is our home port, but of course we're here to take you through anything and everything that happens across the NIHL, and we have been throughout the entire regular season, and we're going to walk you through the playoffs too. But we look at the National Division as well as Division 1 and Division 2 in the north and in the south. Welcome back to BOTW Towers. Welcome into the library as always. And yeah, well, a bit of a weekend, won't lie. Had a bit of a tough one, but we'll go into that in a little bit, of course. I know there's a few people who are going to be watching that have not been in the past, but if you're new, hi, welcome. But yeah, a variety of bits and pieces. No new additions to the hockey shelf since last week, of course, because the Steel City Showdown puck that the folk at England Ice Hockey gave me is resting up there in the moment in the what was the one available spot. But yeah, pretty crazy weekend. The last weekend of the regular season in the NIHL. So officially, the regular season is closed. All cup competitions have been handed out. All the league titles have been handed out. And finally, we have league champions in the southern divisions to match the ones in the north. The last playoff spots have been claimed, and there's going to be plenty of action to come in the playoffs as well. So we'll have a look at the upcoming fixtures as well as those all-important playoff ties and playoff trees, thanks to the bits and pieces from Joe Scutts at NIHL Stat. Me, he says, having a swig of water, I had an absolute mare of a weekend. I was due to be joining Joe on commentary in Slough for the Bees and the Steel Dogs, and I got horrifically sick. Unfortunately, my son got a bug, which I then caught, and now my wife has caught. So it has been this has been the plague house for the last couple of days. I'll talk about one of the effects of that being ill when we get into the results a little bit later, because there was a moment where I thought genuinely I was having some sort of fever dream, and you can probably guess during which game. But yeah, not the best weekend. The weekend that I ended up having to take completely away from hockey, but such is life in these bits and pieces. As much as we love the sport, your health has to come first. But before we kick too much into all of the big news and bits and pieces like that, a little bit of housekeeping as always. If you're new, stay tuned. This is how things work, and if you've been here a while, hum along. You know the words. bannersonthewall.wordpress.com, your number one source for all things related to the NIHL. Normally, you won't have one from last weekend, but you've got a season's worth of stuff following me on my journey through British hockey. That is our Banners on the Road series. You get a long-form, in-depth look at the last game that I went to, which of course, given the season I've had, has been from commentating in the Elite League to the South 2 Cup final, to D-side, to Romford, to going across all the different levels of the NIHL. And the only league I didn't make it to this year was North 2. So that's one I'll have to look at rectifying next year. Then I will have officially covered the entirety of the span, and then I can do an Andrew Day and start going to all the women's leagues into the bargain as well. But you've got that. You've also got our Hockey Story series, which is our in-depth long-form pieces of content. Some of them are audio-visual, some of them are written, but basically we take a topic, dive into that story. Some of them are historical, some of them are interviews with people, some of them are kind of telling folks' story. We speak to league owners, we speak to players, we speak to club owners, we speak to officials, we talk about history, we do all kinds of things from the 19th century to the present day, behind the Iron Curtain, into war, and beyond. Plenty of stuff to keep you satisfied over there. You've got the back catalogue of the old BOTW podcast, as well as our free-to-download tabletop ice hockey game, Dice Hockey. That's there as well. That's all there on the website, which as of Monday, if you weren't paying attention, 14 years. Banners on the Wall has now been going as of Monday, so 14 years and 2 days. If you excuse me. But yeah, 14 years worth of content over on the website, bannersonthewall.wordpress.com. The other bit, of course, is here, YouTube, Wednesday nights. If you're just new, where have you been? We're here every Wednesday night, 8 p.m, all the way through the British ice hockey season, and we will be here till past the Coventry weekend, past the Steel City Showdown, checking in every Wednesday night at 8 p.m, the only show that live covers every division, every game across the NIHL, and we dip our toe into the Elite League, and we dip our toe into the WNIHL. You get your whole British hockey banquet here on Wednesday nights on the What's Current stream. And of course, the great bit is you can do the catch up. If you're on the catch up, remember to check back earlier in the stream for your secret word. But the great bit is you can join in the chat. Questions, comments, thoughts, feelings, anything that you want to throw in as we're chatting our way through British hockey, please do. But if you are going to join in the chat, please remember the golden rule here at BOTW, and that is DBAD. Don't be a dick. Be respectful of other people's thoughts and feelings, and we are all going to have a wonderful time. Great to see so many folk in the chat. Andrew's already leapt in. That's, oh blimey, there's been another goal in the time we've been talking in Belfast. The Giants now 7-2 to the good against the Fife Flyers as they look to get themselves a little bit of a cushion heading into the final 2 weekends of their regular season. JJ Picanich with a hat-trick and goals as well from Gabe Bass, Scott Conway, Bobo Carpenter and Grant Mismash, still for my money one of the best names in British hockey. Michael Chichi and Felix Martineau with the goals for the Flyers in that one. Yes, John, I've just seen you said that in the chat. Fife were 2-0 up, and it is now very much not not 2-1. Glasgow and Guildford is tied at 1. Cole Hewley with the goal for the Clan. Josh Waller on the board for the Flames. And he called them the Phoenix there. You can see where my mind is. And it is 1-1 in the first intermission at the National Ice Centre. The Nottingham Panthers tied with the Manchester Storm. Mitch Fossier with the goal for the Panthers. Joe Morrow on the board for the Storm. Lots of interesting threads in that one. Panthers, of course, chasing the league after everything happened the year before. The Storm, desperate to try and get back into the playoff positions, beat Cardiff, battered Cardiff at the weekend, which was great to see Zach Milton get on the scoreboard too. So lots going on there. I think they poked the bear, unfortunately, 5. You might be right, Jamie. Just a smidgen. Yeah, I think five poked the bear, and Belfast decided they weren't having any more of that nonsense. Of course, the one thing before we kick off into too much of the news, and of course, we all know what you're here for. Here's what we're going to do. There's one big bit of news that's come out today that we do need to talk about. We're then going to do the National Division results from the past weekend to round off the regular season, look at the final table, look at the fixtures, and then we will talk about the NIHL National Division All-Stars. And we'll get into all of those bits and pieces in a minute. So, the big bit of news, of course, that's come out today from England Ice Hockey is that Whitley Warriors' Dean Holland has been suspended. He has been suspended for the remainder of the 24-25 campaign and the first 30 games of the 25-26 season for his slash on Bailey Challenge of the Nottingham Lions. Just going to quickly get up the press release here. But yeah, a huge suspension for Holland in this one. Of course, suspended earlier in the year for 8 games for a check to the head. So here we go. Following a discipline review system submission from the Nottingham Lions regarding an incident during the game between Whitley and Nottingham on the 9th of March 2025, the Department of Player Safety has reviewed the case using official video footage. Dean Holland has been assessed a 5 in-game misconduct for slashing, which if you've seen the video, because the video has started to do the rounds, Holland slashed him in the groin. It's classified as a Tariff 4 offence, so pretty high in that regard. I don't remember that many other Tariff 4s coming out this season. As a result, he's suspended for the remainder of the 24-25 season with an additional 30-game suspension to be served during 25-26. While there is no indication of malicious intent, slight interesting one there given that he slashed somebody in the groin, the combination of video evidence and detailed medical report highlights the seriousness of the injury sustained. So that pretty much means something bad has happened to Bailey Challenge as a result of that slash. The decision reflects the potential for actions on the ice to result in severe, even life-altering consequences. It's our collective duty to safeguard the safety and enjoyment of everyone participating in ice hockey. Taking measures to reduce risks in the sport is crucial, not only to enhance the overall experience, but also provide reassurance to all participants. Not brilliantly worded, but makes sense. DOPS engaging constructive discussions with Whitley management, who are still discussing an appeal. While they recognise the severity of the incident, we acknowledge they may hold differing views regarding the outcome of the review. Reasonable. We also note the team has the right to appeal this decision should they choose to do so in accordance with established disciplinary procedures. So basically, we don't agree, but we're banning you anyway. We urge all players, coaches and team officials to understand the importance of accountability. Respect for the game and each other is essential. We must all play our part in maintaining a safe environment where the game can be enjoyed without fear of serious injury. There's a few little bits after that, but the larger chunk of it saying, sort of saying, basically, we think it's very bad. Whitley clearly don't think it's as bad. You can appeal if you want. We're still banning him we're still giving him a whopping ban, and they have ban-hammered Dean Holland into 2026 with that one. Pretty substantial. But thoughts on that one? As I said, I know the video's doing the rounds, so stick what you think about that one in the chat, because we will move from huge suspensions, because there's going to be some other suspensions to talk about in a moment. But we will, very quickly, click a button, and we'll have a look at the action from last weekend in the NIHL National Division, which began on Friday night. And of course, when we were talking last Wednesday, the Milton Keynes Lightning had been left licking their wounds, the title within their grasp, and it slipped away again up the road to Yorkshire and the Leeds Knights. But they had to be back in action first on Friday evening up against the Romford Raiders, where Romford were very thoroughly put to the sword. 7-1 victory for the Lightning in the Thunderdome in this one. Ross Venus, a couple from Jordan County, Sean Norris, Dylan Lawrence, Corey McEwen and Thomas Rutkiss all on the board for the Lightning. The lone Raiders goal coming in the first period from Reed Morrison. Heading into Saturday then, there was a game I was meant to be at which saw the first goal of the season for Marcus Mitchell, which him and I have been laughing about off air for a little while now, especially because he then hit the post the following night in another game that was very bizarre. In a back and forth battle though at the Hangar that ultimately results in 2 points going to the Sheffield Steel Dogs, who broke their recent bad run of form with an overtime win against the Bees. Of course, one of these two teams moving on and the other team finishing their season off this weekend. Don Gabai, Will Stead, Josh Martin and the aforementioned Marcus Mitchell on the board for the Bees. Walker Summer, Jack Brammer, Henry Adams and Nathan Ripley in regulation for the Dogs to take things into overtime. Marcus Mitchell with the game-tying goal, but ultimately a more established goal-scoring name, Ivan Björkley Nordstrom, with the goal to give the win to the Dogs. And then, well, the last playoff spot was still up for grabs in the National Division as we headed into Saturday, but this result sealed the deal. The overtime winner from Devon Skaleski officially shuts the Sharks out of the postseason again, and the Telford Tigers, who were pretty much dead and buried about 2.5 months ago, have gone on the run of a lifetime and make the playoffs on the last weekend of the season. They beat the Swindon Wildcats by 5-4 at the Link Centre and have done the business and make their way back to the postseason. Telford, of course, whose season was ended last year in Coventry on that controversial overtime goal against Peterborough. They always seem to get so close and can never quite get over the hump. Can they find a way to run the table from 8th this time in the postseason? We will find out soon enough. Tomasz Malazinski, Jake Bricknell with yet another goal for him, Aaron Nell and Balan Pakulti for the Cats in regulation, James Smith, Scott McKenzie, Devon Skaleski and that late goal from Rhodes Mitchell King to take the Tigers to overtime. And it's Skaleski's power play winner in the extras that sends Scott McKenzie, Tom Watkins and the boys into post-season play. Which of course made this result somewhat academic, all things considered. A shame really for the Solway Sharks. They are fantastically entertaining. It's also going to, if I press that button there and that actually moves on. There we go. They are a fantastic entertaining side. I love Solway. I love the folk attached to Solway. But when it mattered right at the death, it just wasn't to be for them. They had their chances and couldn't put them away. The Lightning winning by 5-1 away at the Shark Tank. Mason Alderson with the last home goal of the Sharks campaign. Sean Norris with 2. Dylan Lawrence, Max Stewart and Ross Venus with the other goals for the Lightning on what was Jamie Thompson's last game as part of the coaching staff in front of the faithful at the Shark Tank. The Champs, well, the Champs didn't have the best of nights, but they did get to pick up the trophy despite dropping a 2-1 decision to the Peterborough Phantoms. All of the goals done in the first half of the game. 1-1 at the end of the first period as Matt Howlett's goal was cancelled out by Cam Huff. And then, fair play, he's had a very, very impressive season when given his opportunities. Louis Kinniston with the game-winning goal just before the 30-minute mark is enough to get an extra 2 points in the pocket of Slava Kulikov's side. And then there was this ridiculousness. The video was doing the rounds and poor Leeds, they get to pick up the trophy and nobody was talking about it. Because these two sides decided that they were going to go absolutely 1980s gangbusters on this thing. Bristol awarded the win. They win by 6-3 because this game didn't make the 60 minutes, abandoned with just over 5 minutes to go after a bizarre series of events that saw bench clearances, headshot hits, inadvertent knees, high sticks to the face that were not called, Tommy Napier standing on people's sticks trying to snap them, Bobby Chamberlain throws a helmet at the bench, somebody throws Bobby Chamberlain's equipment into the crowd, which I think was Jacob White-Say. I believe it's Bobby Reagan who's on the game sheet as being given a game misconduct for throwing a stick at Chamberlain during the melee. Off-ice officials getting into the arguments with some of the Hull players. Ultimately, Bristol get the win, but it was not enough. It wasn't enough in that moment to get themselves off the bottom of the table. Sean Morris, who's been very, very productive in the back end of the season for the Pitbulls, as well as Mitch Walensky, Mason Lipsey, Josh Poole, Reece Smetham, and Ewan Hill with the final goal of the regular season at Cribbs Causeway. The goals for the Hawks, 2 from Bobby Chamberlain and 1 from Owen Sobchuk. Into Sunday, and we're into gong show mode. A massive congratulations to Ben Clark-Leach, so the big main backstop for the Swindon Wildcats NIHL 1 side across this season. Had to step in and take a bulk of the workload when Brett Massey got injured. But given a reward for all of his hard work, with Rennie Marr rested ahead of the playoffs, Tyler Perry was allowed to have a little bit of a rest as well, and Ben Clark-Leach got his National Division debut starting for the Cats, and his team in front of him gave him all the support in the world. An 8-4 win for Swindon in a game where players were rested on both sides as they take the points away from Sheffield. The goals for the Dogs in this one, 2 from Elmeri Helfors, 1 for Nathan Ripley and 1 for Ivan Björkley-Nordstrom. And then for the Cats, a couple from Glenn Billing, a couple from Jake Bricknell, as well as 2 from Ed Kasbebris, Reed Sayers and Ed Bradley with the other goals as those two sides concluded their regular season. And then the champs end only with a 1-point weekend to finish the campaign as Hull, depleted but still alive and still very much kicking, win in a shootout by 4-3 in the Yorkshire Derby. Now, I'd said I wanted Leeds to win on the last day, given what happened the night before. Perhaps it's better we didn't have that level's worth of emotion up in Hull on Sunday evening. But either way, Hull getting 2 points to finish off their campaign. Deck Jones, Emil Svek, Lee Bonner and Owen Sobchuk with the shootout winner in this one. Goals for the Knights coming from Finn Braden, Ollie Endicott, and a power play goal from Braden in the 3rd period. And then, well, what could have been? This could have been the game to decide the final playoff spot. And, well, all things considered, if it had come down to it, it could have been Solway in as they win by 6-3 in Shropshire against the Tigers. But unfortunately, the story already put to bed. Too late for the Sharks, as the Tigers already securing their spot there. Henderson, Thompson and Mackenzie. How often are we going to hear those names across the postseason? And the Sharks season concludes with goals from Nolan Gardner, who hits the 100-point mark in the last game of the season. Congratulations to him. As well as tallies for Lewis Young, Kel Beattie, Olivier Arsenault, Callum Boyd, and the last goal of the season coming from Kyle Carruth. And now we're into 1980s throwback territory. 12-7. First goals of the season, this one from Adam Erskine and Ty Cathcart in the last game of the season. As we can see, a hat-trick from Nathan Salem. We're not going to go through all of this because this is all bonkers. But it is pretty crazy stuff. Massively enjoyable hockey to end the campaign. We thank the Bees, of course. The Bloody Minded Bees did give a good chunk of entertainment across the course of the season, but of course the Pitbulls and the Sharks all now finished. Because then there was the last one. Now, I said to you earlier I was ill in bed most of the weekend, and I was. And there was a point on Sunday where I had to have a lie down and have a bit of a nap. I woke up and grabbed my phone because, I've woken up and I just wanted to check what was going on. And I saw the first period. I read the first period score as 8-3 and thought I was having a fever dream and immediately took some paracetamol. 2 goals for Lee Duwants, who stepped up massively in the back end of the campaign for the Pitbulls. Obviously, didn't end brilliantly for them. But, great to see some guys getting some opportunities. And then Romford padded their stats, as you can see. 15-8 is the sort of score you'd expect in a volleyball match, not in a nice hockey one. But either way, the Pitbulls have gone down swinging, literally and metaphorically, as 24-25 finishes for our friends in blue and white from the West Country. The Raiders finally locked into the playoffs, get the opportunity to just have some fun. Which, of course, takes us to the final table in the NIHL National Division. 54 games played, everything is done. The Bristol Pitbulls, the Berkshire Bees and the Solway Sharks are finished. They are done outside and left to wait and wonder and plot and scheme. And it means, of course, as we can see, confirmed at the top of the table, but only by a point at the end. The Leeds Knights, champions once again, and our 8 teams are qualified for the playoffs, which means, for those of you who haven't been paying attention, here are the playoff groups. Now, this is on the National Division website. It's all been done in alphabetical order. But what you get is the Hull Seahawks, the Leeds Knights, the champions, the Peterborough Phantoms and the Telford Tigers in Group A, the Milton Keynes Lightning, the Romford Raiders, the Sheffield Steel Dogs, and the Swindon Wildcats in Group B. Because what that means is the upcoming fixtures for this weekend. It's playoffs only, all money, all gas, no breaks, and it is time to rock and roll. This coming Saturday, the playoffs begin. Hull take on Peterborough, Milton Keynes take on Romford, Swindon take on Sheffield, and it is Telford sneaking in at the last weekend. They immediately get to start with their game against Leeds. And then on Sunday, we're all going to do a little bit of a flip around and try something else. Leeds will host Telford, Peterborough Hull, Sheffield Swindon, Romford versus MK. Because then, now, ladies and gentlemen, the regular season is done, and that means that the bit that you have all been waiting for is here. There's the logo. We're just going to hit this button though and come back to the main screen. Because it is time to talk about the NIHL All-Star teams. So the Hockey's Diversity NIHL All-Stars, of course, they've been released across the course of this week. Monday evening you had Zero Pucks Given and Ben Hyde releasing the All-Star teams for South 1 and South 2. The Billingham Stars Starcast that came out, that was recorded last night but came out early this morning, gave you the teams from North 1 and North 2. Of course, I do encourage you to go check out those bits and pieces. But of course, the main reason why you are here is to check out all of the teams from the NIHL National Division. So, I'm going to click some buttons on my end, but of course you are just going to see my face because I want to be able to bring stuff up so I can actually read it. And what we will do is we will start with the fact that we have 2 All-Star teams. So here's how it worked. There has been no media voting in this. This has been voted for by coaches and captains from all of the 11 NIHL National Division teams. So no media involvement, no fan involvement. Coaches and coaching staff and captains. So my understanding is each club had 3 votes, and that is how this has been worked out. So we have a goalkeeper, 2 defensemen, 3 forwards, and then we have a first All-Star team and a second All-Star team. Clubs were not allowed to vote for their own players. So we start then with the first All-Star line for the NIHL National Division, and between the pipes, who else could it be? The most wins across the season as a netminder, arguably the top netminder outside of the Elite League in this country. I'm just going to quickly pull up some of the numbers that I had to hand. 92.17% saves, 2.4 goals against, 34 wins across the season. Your all-star first-line netminder is Sam Gospel of the Leeds Knights. On defence, well, keeping with something of the theme, one of Sam Gospel's teammates joins him. Your first all-star defenceman is Noah McMullen of the Leeds Knights. He is joined on defence by Ryan Wells of the Swindon Wildcats. So a very Nell-themed start to the first all-star team. The forwards, well, definitely some names that you will not be surprised by. The league's top scorer is a first-team all-star, Owen Sobchuk of the Hull Seahawks is in the lineup, as is Walker Summer of the Sheffield Steel Dogs, arguably one of the most feared players across the entire division. They are joined on that first all-star line by Sean Miller of the Romford Raiders. So just to recap then, all-star first line, netminder Sam Gospel of the Leeds Knights. Defence is Ryan Wells of the Swindon Wildcats and Noah McMullen of the Leeds Knights. And your forwards in the first line are Owen Sobchuk of the Hull Seahawks, Walker Summer of the Sheffield Steel Dogs, and Sean Miller of the Romford Raiders. The second All-Star team has a few more familiar names, and some names you might have been wondering, where were they in the first team? There's definitely a few names to mention in the second All-Star team. At the back, the netminder who has faced more shots than anybody else in the division and somehow still managed to keep himself over a 90% save percentage. The second All-Star team netminder is Max Wright of the Berkshire Bees. His defencemen in front of him then, 2 guys from opposite ends of the table, but somewhat of an interestingly similar-ish kind of style, although one is definitely a little more physical than the other. Malik Martelli of the Milton Keynes Lightning is joined on defence in the second All-Star team by Tanner Butler of the Bristol Pitbulls. Our forwards for the second All-Star line one from the champions, as somewhat to be expected, and arguably the best British player outside of the Elite League. Leeds Knights and championship winning captain Kieran Brown is joined by Sam Tremblay of the Sheffield Steel Dogs and the league's top goal scorer, Jake Bricknell of the Swindon Wildcats. So there is our second all-star line. Max Wright of the Berkshire Bees is your netminder, with Malik Martelli and Tanner Butler from the Lightning and the Pitbulls respectively. And your second all-star forwards are Kieran Brown of the Leeds Knights, Sam Tremblay of the Sheffield Steel Dogs, and Jake Bricknell of the Swindon Wildcats. So there we go, ladies and gentlemen, the bit you were all waiting for. So if you don't like any of the other parts of the division, you can all go scuttle away now. But no, that is the big news. That's everything you needed. Looking at, so if we're just going back at those again, so that first team again: Gospel, Wells, McMullen, Sobchuk, Sommer, Miller. What do we reckon? Questions, comments, thoughts, feelings. Let's get everything in the chat. Let's have a quick chat about it now. And see what people think of it. Panthers are 2-1 up. Thank you, Dylan. Sam Hare. I do like Sam Hare. Very, very good player. Looking forward to seeing the Panthers on Saturday. So what we'll do very, very quickly, of course, just because they're not on the screen, and I don't have a working graphic for that. Apologies there, everybody. Like I say, the illness is almost gone, but not all the way gone. So what we do is we quickly pop this in the chat as we're talking. Wells, McMullen, and then we need. So let's just type that. Solchuk. And there we go, and Miller. There we go. Because then we can do our second All Stars as well, which was. As we type this in as we go. So, right. I'm not going to be able to spell Malik's. I can never spell his name correctly, and I'm sure Jamie's immediately going to correct me as soon as I've done this. But that's absolutely fine. And then it was Brown, Tremblay, and Bricknell. So there we go. So there, everyone's got them in the chat as well now, so they can see. Like I say, I will apologise now, Jamie, because I know you are going to. I know you will correct me if I've spelt Malik's name. If I spelt Malik's name incorrectly. But yeah, so for me, looking at it from an analysis point, Gospel 100% cannot argue that at all. Noah McMullen, I think, doesn't quite get some of the plaudits he should do. I know a lot of people, and I mean the fact that him and Wells, I think I can rectify myself to as a first All-Star pairing, but yeah, I wasn't sure whether McMullen would quite get the sort of level of love that I think many people will do. I have to confess I'm surprised by an omission from Tom Norton. I still think Tom Norton is the. Hey, I got it right. I got Martelli's name correct. Well done, me. I'm surprised at the omission of Tom Norton. I still think Tom Norton is arguably one of the better defensive players in this division. A few bits of people surprised with Sam Tremblay. I assume that's Jack from Macca's Talk Hockey who's joined us there. Rich and Nikki Middleton surprised with Tremblay as well. I would have had Henderson from the Tigers, but I'm biased to tell. Hey, at least you admit it. Don't pretend to be neutral. Nobody's 100% neutral, guys. So don't worry about that one. I think the issue for Henderson and Thompson, particularly from a forward standpoint, is they were very, very clearly very, very good. But that massive drop-off, they kind of hit the ground running really quickly, but then had that massive dip down before this end run. And I think looking at it across the entirety of the season, I've spelt Tremblay wrong, which doesn't help. But but certainly I think one of the things with Tremblay was consistency good for his entirety of his period of play. I'm still surprised that he made it too. But given the fact that he left early, but I think that level of quality from him was so high alongside Sommer that that I think obviously that's kind of stuck in the minds of coaches going forward. Bricknell making the All-Star team, I can rectify myself too. I won't lie, I'm slightly confused. I'm slightly surprised Miller made the. I'm slightly surprised that Miller made the first team, mostly, and I think potentially because his late injury hurt him. I personally felt Shufelt was better, the better of the two of them if I was picking, but what do I know? But yeah, certainly for Miller, he is. I mean, either him or Shufelt have had a really, really good season. I would have thought potentially that Matt Bissonnette would have found a way in somewhere. Jamie is actually stuck one person in that I was seriously humming and hawing a little bit about, which was Rhodes Mitchell King. I think the issue sometimes with, I think you can get away in an all-star team with, and I think so. I've seen somebody said they would have picked Rennie Marr over Max Wright. With all due respect to Rennie Marr, I wouldn't have picked him over Max. I would have picked him over Max Wright. And this is even saying Rennie has been much better this year than he was last year. And I don't think Swindon fans would disagree with me. 23-24 was a bit of an off year for Rennie, and 22, and he's out of his last 3 years, he had a meh year, and this year I think Rennie's actually been really, really good. But even then, I think you kind of have to give some deference to the fact that Wright's goals against, I think, was 4.03. So he letting in 4 goals a game and still had a beyond 90 save percentage. With all due respect, however well Rennie Marr's played, I think Max Wright deserves something from that. And interesting as well, isn't it, that the import netminder, the 3 import netminders brought into the Division 2 finished outside of the postseason. Hayden Levine, of course, the only import starting netminder to make the playoffs this year. Not really in the conversation for either of the All-Star teams, though. And the one who does make it is the guy who faced more shots. Wright is the only netminder to face more than 2,000 shots in the division. And he makes the All-Star team, and I think that's probably why. Yeah, certainly for Rhodes Mitchell King, I think it's a discussion. But I think as a goalie on a lower end team, I think you can get away with it in the same way that like Curtis Cruikshank did back in the Elite League. If you're a defenseman on a lower end team, I think there has to be a real argument, and that's the thing for me in terms of Tanner Butler. Now, Tanner Butler has a skill set. Bristol fans love him. You know, a lot of people like how he plays, like a lot of his captaincy style. But for me, and I think the thing as well for Butler, he is a massive, massive offensive generating player from the back end, and that's a huge, huge thing in this division. Butler third in team scoring. The issue, of course, for Bristol is second in team scoring. Even now is Nick Price, who hasn't been there for over a third of nearly a third of the season. But Butler's numbers from the back end in terms of being able to generate offense, to be able to kind of push things forward and lead from the back. I get the rationale. I think certainly I will be might have a couple of conversations over playoffs with folk as to some of their choices. But like I say, remember, this is not picked by media, this is not picked by fans, and it's not picked by their own teams as well. This is the coaches and the captains effectively of everybody else. So obviously, what are some of us as fans and people like looking at this and analysing it and left scratching our heads, so the coaches aren't doing that. The coaches clearly see the value in Tanner Butler, and we will see whether we get Tanner Butler back for Bristol next season, because of course, unfortunately for the Pitbulls, their season being over, all they get to do at the moment is watch and potentially throw out some re-signings to try and keep people happy. And such an odd situation in Bristol as well, when you think selling out regularly. It's not a bad facility at all, and for whatever reason on the ice it just doesn't seem to work, and hasn't worked the last couple of years since they joined the National Division. So we will see eventually what they can kind of make out of it, but yeah, those are the guys that have made it. Malik Martelli, for me, one of these days an Elite League team needs to have a proper look at him and have a crack with him. Kieran Brown, we could have a conversation about till the cows come home. Jake Bricknell, I think, really did find a niche. When I spoke to fans who'd watched him in the Elite League for Manchester before, sort of said he never was quite what the level we maybe wanted him to be, but found a real home in Swindon, found a role in Swindon as well. Had a tendency occasionally to kind of maybe at the beginning of the season, I remember him like backing out of a fight with Kean Shevlin and thinking, like, what are you doing? But he sort of settled much more into kind of what his role was, which was to be a big unit of a man and score lots of goals, and it just kind of worked for him. So there we go. Andrew keeping us updated in the chat as Guildford are now 3-1 up on Glasgow. Josh Waller and Lewis Hook. Glasgow get themselves back on the TV channel that they own, and yeah, they're still there. And unfortunately, not turning it on for the cameras. It's the Flames doing the business there. Hey, and fantastic. There we go. Just have a look as that's coming. As that's come out there. Just posted a little while ago, just at 1:30 the hour. Lee Bonner back for 25-26 for the Hull Seahawks. Thanks for sticking that in the chat, Jamie. You've just seen the message here from the Seahawks. The Hull Wreck-It Seahawks delighted to announce the return of Mr. Worldwide himself and global gift sensation number 74, Lee Bonner. Dearie me, that gif is ridiculous, isn't it? So he's got a sponsor for sponsor for next year as well. Great little bit of news for folk coming into the into the postseason, particularly as well because where are we? Wednesday night, so the clubs should be finding out about what happens off the back of DOPS tomorrow, and Hull could be in for a little bit of an issue, is the short answer on that. But either way, so like we say, just to recap it one more time. The first All-Star line, netminder Sam Gospel, defenceman Ryan Wells and Noah McMullen, the forwards Owen Sobchak, Walker Summer and Sean Miller. The second All-Star team, Max Wright is the netminder, Malik Martelli and Tanner Butler are the defencemen, Kieran Brown, Sam Tremblay and Jake Bricknell are your forwards on the second line. Job done. Job done. We love a job done. But yeah, like I say, any more questions, any more comments or anything like that? I'm like I say, the Miller one I still find interesting, and I know. I mean, I can see there that Jack's obviously definitely the best forward for me. Like I say, I can't argue it, and I think maybe it's just because it's at the moment where I'm tired and I'm still trying to, clear the fog of being clear the fog from being fully fit and not being fully fit still. But I don't know. Like I say, there's a few names. Like I say, Matt Bissonette is the name that I wondered whether he would sneak a way in. I wonder whether Jordan not necessarily Cowney, Max Stewart. I wondered whether he'd find a way in. I didn't think Sean Norris would, having joined late, but I think I've been really impressed with Max Stewart this year. Glenn Billing, I think, doesn't get enough love. No Ferrara, no Lackinen, no Huff, of course, so people will have a think about that. Panthers 2, Storm 2, I can see there from Dylan. Thank you very much, Alexidos. Whatever you say happened to Lions this weekend didn't. Oh, but it did. But it did, Dylan. And we will talk about that momentarily, of course. Yes, Hull are having far too much fun with that gift. Now, the problem is what do they do next year? Does he recreate it? Does he Does he have to do something new? By the way, massive one. Personally, would have swapped Butler and Tremblay for Rose Mitchell-King and Nolan Gardner's not a bad shout. Another 100-point forward missing out on that one. Yeah, I still think personally, from a defensive perspective, I think I'm probably swapping out Tanner Butler for Tom Norton. Just because from a positional perspective, I think you can't have Davy Phillips in that discussion. Do you maybe have a think about Dec Balmer? But again, what are you asking him for? Can't really argue with the calls though. All selected fully deserving. Fair enough. Yeah, fair enough, Tom. I think I figured you guys in Swindon would at least be happy with Wells and Bricknell making the team. Didn't happen. Lions 2, however, did. Fair enough. You allowed one Nottingham team. Shout out to Michael Barachowski. Either way, talking of the Lions then, shall we have a look as it wasn't just the National Division that concluded, it was everywhere else as well. So we will have a quick look then as to what happened in Division 1 and Division 2 in the North and the South. I like Stenton. Stenton's a fair shout actually, but again, the issue there, Jack, is putting a defenseman in an all-star team from a team that didn't qualify for the playoffs. Because, and maybe this again is my bias, but I know I've had this discussion with a lot of people. I like my defensemen to defend. And actually, this is the thing, is that I was worried when particularly with Ryan Wells. When Ryan Wells joined, he had all of the numbers and all of the traits and all the footage said offensive defenseman. And actually, the one thing he was, where I'd said that Wells and Bradley were two players who were too similar, Wells ended up playing a much more defensive game, either because he had to. The other thing, of course, is probably because he could. So it allowed the two of them to play together. Didn't stop me having a heart attack whenever the pair of them were on the ice together. But that is why I definitely can't argue Ryan Wells, because Ryan Wells actually showed he could be really defensive, where all of the stuff that came before said he was like a Ben O'Connor. Clan 2 Flames 4 now, so goals flying in up in Glasgow. Am I the only one who likes Tremblay? I thought he was solid for the Dogs. Gardner was a freak import for the Sharks, so I hope for his sake he's back next season. I think it's not a case of not liking Tremblay, Dave. I think people would rather reward the folk who stuck it out rather than disappearing, I think is the thing. Either way then, Division 1 in the North, where there was one playoff spot left heading into the weekend. And the Leeds Knights seemed to be able to keep tripping over their own shoelaces. They lost to the one team that couldn't make it, which was the Sheffield Scimitars, as the Shims closed out their campaign with a 6-2 victory at Ice Sheffield on Saturday night against the Knights. It was tied at 2-2. Leeds were even 2-1 up in the first period before 5 goals in the third from the Scimitars to absolutely kick Leeds straight in the kneecaps. George Crawshaw, Jack Dransfield, Briddy Crofts, Marcus Thacker, Ben Cutts and Brandon Chard for the Shims to cancel out the 2 goals from Owen Dell, as everybody was left wondering what was going on. Meanwhile, the champs got to pick up the trophy and got to put their local rivals fully and firmly to the sword. The Billingham Stars break the North 1 wins record, 33-3 on the season. Stephen Foster's team finishes. They defeat the Whitley Warriors by 8-2, 4-0 up by the half hour mark before Whitley finally got themselves on the board. And a pretty impressive night, a hat-trick on the night as well for Callum Wilkinson in this one. 2 goals from Tom Wakefield, another one from Ian Brown. What's that mean Ian Brown's finished with? Ian Brown finishes with 68 goals. Ridiculous. As well as goals from Conor McNulty and Chris Sykes. The goals for the Warriors coming from Jordan Barnes and Matt Betham. Hull with a pretty convincing win against the Solihull Barons on Saturday. 7-2. They win at the Worldsworth Versatile Arena. 5-0 up by the 12th minute of play before Solihull got themselves back into the game through 2 goals from Dan Mulcahy, who doesn't make any of the All-Star teams for the respective for Division 1 North, it should be said, despite being somebody I've seen mentioned almost all the time. 2 goals from Sam Rogers and goals from Boris Gibber, Richard Hagar, Adam Jasico, Regan Taylor and Ian Kerman for the Jets. As we mentioned, 2 goals from Dan Mulcahy for Solihull. And Saturday then, things got very nervous for the Leeds Knights, because the Widnes Wild did this to the Nottingham Lions. A game where it went backwards and forwards. And ultimately, Widnes did what they had to do. They needed a win, knowing that results going their way could see them sneak into the postseason at the last minute. And leave it. And the Lions already qualified and already locked in to 7th spot in a game where also as well the Wild managed to take 7 penalties to Nottingham's 1, but they still managed to do what needed to be done at the death. Matt Barlow leading the way with a hat trick against goals from Luke, as well as goals from Luke Alston, Michael Gilbert, Andrew Hopkins and Dan Hyde. The goals for the Lions coming, a hat trick from Alex Rushby and 2 from Alish Padlek. Make your own jokes there. Leading into Sunday, and D-side did a D-side, because look at that one for an absolute load of nonsense. 9-8 against Hull, and we know what's going to happen with what's happening in the playoffs, don't we? As we'll talk about that in a minute. But yes, why defend when you cannot defend? The game eventually settled in overtime. Brody Jesson's 7th of the campaign, deciding that and giving the Dragons a 2-point finale as they head into the postseason. A hat trick on the final day and 6 points for Jack Witkowski, 2 goals for Brady Jesson, 2 for James Parsons, 1 for Henry Phillips and 1 from Alex Parry. Goals for the Jets, a hat trick from Ethan Daintius, 2 from Kieran Beach, 2 from Boris Gibber and 1 from Josh Yeardley. Blackburn, who will obviously be slightly disappointed by their end of the season, missing out on the cup, missing out on the league. They now have their playoff title firmly in their sights. They win by 5-2 up at Hillheads to finish off the campaign there. 2-0 up early, 2-0 up by the half-hour mark thanks to Liam Charnock. Jamie Ord got the Warriors on the board. Liam Hine, Adam Barnes and a goal from James Riddick made it 5-1. A late goal from Phil Edgar taking some shine off of the scoreline, but ultimately one for the Hawks to put into their bank. And then it took them a little while, but the final goal of the final game in Division 1 North and the Leeds Knights make the playoffs at the first time of asking. Nottingham were 3-0 up at the end of the second and Leeds come all the way back. Callum Worthington-Evans' first goal of the season in the first period, along with Bailey Challens and Ewan Woodward, had them at 3-0 up and the Lions were cruising. But then Dylan Harcourt and 2 goals from Ollie Wagg send the game to overtime, and it's Michael Danecco who sends the Knights into the winning column and into the postseason. Now, admittedly, it's going to be a big task to go any further than the first round. But the Leeds Knights, this young team with a few bits of added presence thrown in, tripped over their own shoelaces, but they did get there in the end, and they make the postseason at the first time of asking. Solihull, well, they got a nice tune-up for the end of the season. They beat the Sheffield Scimitars by 10-0. Dan Mulcahy, who started the game on 44 goals, has finished with a 50-goal season by the end of this game. As we can see there, a 6-goal, 8-point night for Dan Mulcahy. A hat-trick on the night as well from Alex White and 1 from Jordan Jolly. The Scimitars, thanks for playing. Their season does come to an end. Matty Blore makes a 63-save performance as Graham Laverick gets a 21-shot shutout. And so then the playoffs. The playoffs are here, as we know. The Hull Jets and the Deeside Dragons will go back to war if they pull out another 9-8-1. It's going to be a hell of a long weekend, but they will start off the NIHL postseason 12:30 p.m. at the world's most versatile arena. Nottingham take on Blackburn. That's on the small pad at the National Ice Centre at 5:10. Whitley versus Solihull is 7 p.m. at Hillheads, and the Leeds Knights take the last spot and they run straight into the Billingham Stars. That's at 7:30 p.m. on Saturday at the Castle. The reverses are all the following day. 5:15 in North Wales, Deeside versus Hull. Billingham take on Leeds at 5:30 at the Forum. Solihull versus Whitley is 5:30 at Hobsmoat Road. And Blackburn versus Nottingham will meet again 6 p.m. at the Hawk's Nest in Lancashire. We see there the final table. The Wild miss out by a point on the last day. Widnes and Sheffield head into the postseason, and there's the playoff tree. So Billingham versus Widnes will take on the winners of Deeside versus Hull. Blackburn and Nottingham will the winners of that one will take on the winners of Solihull versus Whitley, and of course the two teams left, once all of that is done, will head to the Steel City Showdown. Luca Tasadri has joined the chat. Hello, buddy. There we go. What a fun game. I can imagine it was a fun game to play, and it's just good to see you back out on the ice, young man. Glad to see it. And with Luca Tasadri in the chat, it only seems right that we move straight on to his old stomping ground, Chelmsford, on Saturday evening. Of course, they will want to get back the cup winners and last season's playoff champions. Well, they had a pretty eventful evening last time out on Saturday last. They headed to the Sapphire to take on the old enemy Romford ahead of what's to come in the playoffs, and a 3-2 win for Lewis Clifford's side. Uri Husker putting the Buccaneers ahead early. Romford team seem to like scoring in the first minute at the moment. It's pretty crazy. But the Chieftains were 2-1 up by the end of the fifth minute. Sasha Maltsev and Halton Barnes Garner. No goals at all in the second period, because of course not. And then 2 goals in about 90 seconds. Maltsev second of the night, making it 3-1. Nils Maskeland making it 3-2. But ultimately the Chieftains just that little bit stronger, and they hold on for the victory. Well, coming into the last day, Streatham knew what they had to do. They had to win twice. They had to beat Cardiff and beat Solent and hope that Cardiff would do them a favour the following night against Slough. On Saturday night, the defending champs did their bit, a 9-0 victory over the Cardiff Fire in South Wales. A pretty crazy night as well. Ben Scanlon facing 51 shots through 2 periods before Gemma Davies came in relief and faced 26 in a period, which is pretty mad in and of itself. 2 goals from Roman Cathcart and then goals from Ben Painter, Ethan Lane, Ryan Watt, Jared Lane, Luke Brittle, Aidan Doughty and JJ Pitchley, as the Redhawks knew what they had to do. The problem was, on Sunday, well, Ben Scanlon played the game of his life, and Slough, so often, who have come ever so close, tripped over their own feet, got to the playoff final last year and couldn't get past Chelmsford and got blown out. Got to the cup final against Streatham last year and played one of the best games of hockey I saw in 23-24, but couldn't get it over the line. So near and yet so far, so often recently. Chris Beale, who does the social media for Streatham, a long-time friend of mine, said that they've been gaining in their mirror for 4 years, and finally, on the 23rd of March 2025, the Slough Jets came out of the rear view and full force into the windscreen. 2-0, the final score. 2 goals in about 3 minutes in the second period. One goal from Dylan Hallicka and 1 goal from Liam Clark. The Slough Jets are your 24-25 Britain Division champions. They get there at last. Congratulations to Lucas Smittle, to all of the guys at the Jets, Conor Redmond, the captain, and the entire team. They made some adjustments this year, got in some more experience, but kept their faith with the youth. And to think that team ranges all the way from Neil Lydiard in age to Jude Affleck and Isaac Murray and Connor Dudley. But congratulations to Slough. A superb hockey team when you get to watch them. Vastly entertaining. It's a really good style. It's not a style without its issues. But we do now know, of course, that Sunday the 20th of April, Easter Sunday, 12 p.m. at the Sky Dome, the National Division 1 Championship game, Billingham Stars, Slough Jets. I cannot tell you how I'm excited for this one. Styles make fights, and we are in for a real Styles clash. This is going to be an amazing game. Congratulations to Slough. But as we look down here, Ben Scanlon, 66 saves. What a performance from Ben Scanlon, knowing as well what's going to come in the next couple of weeks. Elsewhere on Sunday, well, the City Stars had already been locked out of the postseason, so all that was left to play for was pride in their final derby of the season against the Swindon Wildcats. But the other end of the A420 were victorious. 7-3 that Swindon win at the end of this one, as the City Stars skate off after what's been a pretty tough year. But, and we'll mention them in a moment as well when we look at the All-Star teams, a little glimmer of light there. 2 goals for Alfie Gollard, 2 for Dan Bradley, as well as goals from Jan Costal Sr., Josh Burnett and Hayden Lee for the Cats. The goals for the City Stars, 2 from Jake Williams and 1 from Alex Tidings. And the MK Thunder, well, it finishes 1-34. Well, they were 1-34, yes, because there was a game that wasn't played. But 5-3, the Romford Buccaneers win in the end. So close, but again, so far from the MK Thunder. Pulled it back to 4-3 by the end of the second period, and then Romford scored 19 seconds into the third, and we're just out of sight again. Goals for the Thunder, 2 from Sam Peters and 1 from Sam Purcell. The Buccaneers, who did travel relatively short, as you can see from there, 2 from Euro Husker, 1 from Nils Maskelyne, 1 from Brad Taylor, and 1 from Elliot Dervish. Shout out, of course, to our boy Max van Mullen. Only 21 saves on 24 shots, but a win is a win is a win. Aaron Burton making 55 saves. And it started late. And ultimately, before the game was done, they knew that their title had slipped away. But a 6-0 win for the Streatham Redhawks, who were left looking to the playoffs, the one they've not managed to get. And could the burden of not having anything else mean that this time that one does finally come their way? But yeah, 6-0. Harvey Stead, Ben Painter, 2 goals from Danny Ingoldsby, 1 from Brendan Baird, and 1 from Luke Brittle to finish off the regular season for the South London side. And another impressive shutout victory on the weekend for them. This time from Brett Shepherd, facing only 16 shots, as Rory Martin Edwards faces 52 at the other end. And that means then we get the playoffs in South 1, and we've got some really intriguing ties. Cardiff, having been absolutely shellacked and nearly giving Slough kittens on Sunday evening, get to face the champions all over again. But it looks like this for this coming Saturday. 5 p.m. at the Sapphire is your opening salvo, and the old foes will go back to battle again, having faced each other on the last weekend. Romford meet Chelmsford. 5:30 p.m. on the High Road. The Streatham Redhawks elect to go first, mostly due to the fact because of the Cats playing at home on Saturday. So they will take on Swindon. Swindon's D1 side at 5:30. 5:45 p.m. down in Kent for the Invicta Dynamos and the Solent Devils. If you get the chance to go to either of those games, do. They'll be insane. And in 7:45 p.m, a late start in South Wales for the Cardiff Fire and the Slough Jets. On Sunday then, Gosport, Solent versus Invicta. Slough versus Cardiff is at 5:45 at the Hangar. Chelmsford versus Romford is 6 p.m. at the Riverside. And 6:30 p.m. at the Link Centre, the Swindon Wildcats and the Streatham Redhawks. So they're the final table. The Slough Jets finally champions of Division 1 South. They beat the Redhawks by 1 point on the last day. And then, as we knew, as it's been locked out for a little while, Cardiff, who, like I say, they caused Slough a little bit of a problem on Sunday. Maybe it will have been a case of nerves, and we will see whether the champions will be quite so nervous come this weekend. Slough versus Cardiff, then the winners of that will get the winners of Solent versus Invicta. Streatham versus Swindon, the winners of that will take on the winners of Chelmsford versus Romford. That means one of Streatham or Chelmsford will not make it to Sheffield. Just going to pause briefly because I just need a quick drink. Thanks to Joe Scott. Advance warning on the playoff fixtures in North 2 and South 2. I haven't been given them, so I only find them out when teams post them on their socials. British hockey. Really looking forward to seeing Slough play at Coventry in the North one in the NHL 1 Championship game. I'm telling you, Jamie, having watched both Slough and Billingham this year, we're in for, if both teams got it hammer and tongs, we're in for a treat. In for a real treat. Yes, Dylan, as mentioned there as well, next Wednesday night is the Sheffield Varsity game as well, which I believe Dylan is commentating on. We will definitely be keeping tabs on that as well, whilst the stream is on, as we look through the first bits of playoff action from across the league. So do not forget about that either. Into North 2, and a big win in the context of what's about to happen for the Sheffield Titans. They win by 8-2 against the Kingston Sharks, knowing they needed wins at the bottom end of the table in terms of making the playoff spots there. A hat-trick from Lewis Swaffield helping them on their way. 2 goals as well from Joe Matthewman, as well as goals from Rory Ross-Doherty, Harry Roebuck and Will Weaver. Goals for the Sharks in this one coming from Ellis Martin and Liam Grant. Meanwhile, though, the team that needed a win, having got a fantastic win against Sutton the other week in their Challenge Cup game, it couldn't work out for Bradford. They lose against the Billingham Buccaneers, who've won what is the Hockey Hound Challenge Cup. Tom Wakefield and 2 goals from Ben Greenhalgh as the Buccaneers loan in some of those guys with Division 1 experience. Kai Hathaway with a goal for the Bulldogs in that one. The Nottingham Lions managed to put the D-side Ducks away by 9-1 on Sunday on the small pad, which did have some impacts on some bits and pieces in terms of final finishing positions in North 2. 2 goals from Charlie Davenport and goals from Josh Rawsthorne, Michael Barachowski, Tyler Poole, Adam Clark, Harry McGarvey, Harvey Smith and Ethan Wilcox. The lone D-side Ducks goal coming from Kieran Clarkson. So yes, we don't have all of the fixtures at the moment, which isn't ideal. What we will have, though, we do at least know who is playing whom. So we will, if we skip to the top and at least look at the playoff tree, because this has all gotten a little bit thorny. Because if we look at the table, the issue that we had, and he says he's pressed the wrong button and gone in the wrong direction. So that's as it stands now. So what we know is that Bradford, because there is a game between Sheffield and Bradford that is a game that's not been played, has been awarded as a 0-0 point apiece, and the Titans qualify for the playoffs as a result. So what that means is Telford will play Sheffield, Sutton will play Nottingham, Billingham play Kingston, Coventry play Altrincham. Now we know Altrincham are going to have to play a game at Widnes as part of that, just because of availability of the ice. So what we know here is Telford. Telford versus Sheffield. The winners of that will play the winners of Coventry and Altrincham. Sutton versus Nottingham, their winners will play Billingham, the winners of Billingham versus Kingston. The games we actually have locked in at the moment are that. So 5:30 at the Forum on Saturday for Billingham versus Kingston, and Coventry versus Altrincham at the Sky Dome. And then on Sunday, we know Kingston will play Billingham, so that early start there at the world's most versatile arena. Altrincham will play Coventry at 5:30 p.m. That game is to be played at Widnes due to ice availability. And then, as we know, Sutton are playing Nottingham at 7 p.m. on Sunday. Apparently, we don't know a first leg, and we don't even have dates from Telford or anything that's going on at the moment. The best thing you can do is keep an eye on nhlstats.wordpress.com. When Joe knows, he'll put them up, and hopefully we'll have something from that. Into South 2, and the other cup competition that's been running is the Eddie Joseph Memorial Cup. That final was last weekend as well, as the Peterborough Phantoms were left to kind of play and wait and see if a miracle happened in terms of the league title. But on Saturday's first leg, between the Peterborough Phantoms 2 and the Invicta Mustangs, the Phantoms edge it at Peterborough. They win by 5-3. Peterborough 4-0 up by the 24th minute. Taylor Romeo, Jordan Ho, Leo Markey and Nathan Pollard on the board there. Jake Steadman and Ed Steadman making it 4-2 either side of the second break to make things a bit more nervy. Aaron Ferris then making it 4-3. But a later goal from James White with just under 10 minutes to play, giving Peterborough that edge heading into the second leg the following day. And then on Sunday, it was as simple as that for the Guildford Phoenix. A win in regulation made it all nice and simple. Beat the Lee Valley Lions again and be champions, just as it was the year before. And the Guildford Phoenix do not disappoint. 11-1, the Phoenix win. And they are back-to-back Wilkinson Division champions for the once again. The South 2 champs, and the title goes back to the Spectrum. Congratulations to Stuart Potts and to all the folk at the Phoenix as they head into the postseason. Having lost out on the Cup to Peterborough, the Phoenix steal the league from the Phantoms in return, meaning that the playoffs are now going to be very, very interesting. A hat-trick for Sol Studley on a 5-point night. 2 goals for Josh Abbott, 2 for Scott Bailey, and then goals as well from Logan Hill, Ollie Dennis, Jared Vigar and Monty Gaylor. The lone Lee Valley Lions goal as their season comes to a close, it was from Nathan Awoyemi. And then, well, Peterborough took the other cup as well. 5-3 the one on Saturday night, and 5-3 on Sunday as well. The Peterborough Phantoms win the Eddie Joseph Memorial Cup on final by an aggregate score of 10-6 over the Invicta Mustangs. So congratulations to Nathan Pollard and the rest of the team there. Jordan Ho with 2 early goals that were cancelled out. One in the first from Aaron Ferris and Kevin Lake made it 2-2 on the night. Ho completing his hat-trick to make it 3-2 on the night. Jake Summer made it 3-3 to keep things within touching distance heading into the final period, but goals in the third from Connor Pollard and Dan Martin just put that game just a little bit out of reach, and it's a second cup competition win for the Phantoms heading towards the postseason. And then the last playoff spot was still up for grabs, Chelmsford and Bristol. Well, Chelmsford did their bit. They beat the Oxford Rising Stars by 4-1. The Stars were ahead early in this one, 6 minutes in, and Kieran Wilson scoring for the Rising Stars. And it took into the second period for the Warriors to get on the score sheet, but three goals in quick succession, including 2 in 10 seconds. One from George Beckett, one from Eden Rolfe, and one from Sam Austin made it 3-1, and a goal late on from Taylor Chard made it 4-1, meaning the Warriors just needed to make sure that if they got a result elsewhere, that they would be heading to the playoffs. And get that result, they did. The Bristol Pitbulls go down by 4-0 away in Cardiff. Jaden Ford, Sam Davies, Giacomo Raffaelli, and a second of the night from Davies in the second period. It was 3-0 at the end of the first, and it was just all too much for the Pitbulls. There was no way back, and the former league champions, former playoff winners, will miss the postseason as a result of losing on the last day. As Joe says, he doesn't have all of the fixtures yet, but we do see that the Guildford Phoenix and Chelmsford Warriors have sorted themselves out. 5:30 on Saturday at the Riverside, 5:30 at the Spectrum on Sunday for that one. Haringey will take on Cardiff. They meet at Alexandra Palace on Saturday at 5:30 and Sunday in Cardiff at 6:30. The Oxford Rising Stars and the Invicta Mustangs are sorted as well. 6:15 at the Ox Pens on Saturday, and 5:45 on Sunday down in Kent. The issue that we have there, the only issue left then, is for Peterborough and Solent to sort themselves out as to when they are going to play. Guildford winners of Guildford and Chelmsford take on the winners of Invicta and Oxford. The winners of Peterborough and Solent will take on the winners of Haringey and Cardiff. That means one of Peterborough and Haringey do not make Sheffield. And there we go. All done. The regular season for the National Ice Hockey League for 24-25 is completed. We have gone through... we have missed what? Actually, we didn't miss a week because the Wednesday I was sick, I did it on a Friday. So every game across every week of the entire regular season has been covered here in some way, shape or form across all 5 divisions on the What's Current stream. And that means, given the fact we finished a little bit early, we will open the door. Questions, comments, thoughts and feelings, anything else that you want to chuck into the chat, please do. I'm very quickly going to grab my phone. Because what we will do, we've had the National Division All-Stars. I will very quickly run you through the All-Star leagues from the other the All-Star teams from the other leagues in case you haven't had the chance to hear them. But definitely do go check those bits and pieces out. Do go listen to the StarCast and Ben's bits and pieces as well, because what you'll get is you'll get some better in-depth analysis of it. So we've done the national divisions, of course, as we got there. So what we'll do is we'll do what we usually do, which is start in the north. So Division 1 North All-Stars for the Solent versus Peterborough is awkward because I think both Solent and Peterborough are both at home on Sunday. Hey, if Altrincham can play in a different rink, they can find a different rink to play in. I'd say play in Basingstoke, but you know. Division 1 North All-Stars. So the first All-Star team in North 1. Jacob Hammond of the Billingham Stars is the netminder. Defencemen are Tommy Spraggan of Billingham, Harry Harley of Whitley. The forwards for the first forwards are Nicholas Otterson of the Solihull Barons, Ian Brown of the Billingham Stars, what a surprise, and Jake Witkowski of the Deeside Dragons. The second All-Stars for North 1, Ben Keddy of the Blackburn Hawks is the netminder. The defencemen are Corey Goodison of the Solihull Barons and Bobby Streetley of the Blackburn Hawks. Alex Rushby of the Nottingham Lions, Jacob Lutwich of Blackburn and Andy McKinney of Blackburn are your forwards. South 1. The first All-Stars, and I said there was a little bright light for the Oxford City Stars. The first team All-Star netminder is Ross Miller of the Oxford City Stars. The defencemen are Harvey Stead of the Streatham Red Hawks and Jacob Minter of the Slough Jets. The All-Star forward first line is Cam and Grant Bartlett of the Chelmsford Chieftains, along with Sebastian Moore of the Slough Jets. The second All-Stars for South 1, Danny Milton of the Streatham Red Hawks is the netminder. The defencemen are Dylan Dix of Chelmsford and Callum Wells of Chelmsford. And the forwards are Christian Moore of the Slough Jets, Luke Brittle of the Streatham Red Hawks. And no surprise to anybody who's ever watched him play, Aaron Connolly of the Invicta Dynamos. North 2 All-Stars. Apologies for that, 2 seconds, because sorry, my phone's gone slightly wonky. There we go. Now my issue here is I need to double check because I have completely forgotten this gentleman's first name and I've only got the initial. Yes, I got that right. There we go. Just before I got his name wrong. So the first team All-Stars in North 2. Lewis King of the Sutton Sting is your netminder. Jacob Trustwell of Sutton, Andy Finn of the Billingham Buccaneers are the defenceman. I believe it is, yes, Tom Humphreys of the Kingston Sharks, Taylor Stanton of the Telford Tigers 2, and Morgan Glasby of the Sutton Sting are the first line All-Stars. The second All-Star team is Chris Outhwaite of the Billingham Buccaneers as the netminder. Like I say, apologies. Just one of those things where I just cannot remember all the players' names. Jacob Humphreys of Sutton, and I believe is it Chris Clark? I say it's just one of those things where I just want to make sure. Sorry, Callum Clark. Callum Clark of Billingham is the defenceman, along with Humphreys of Sutton, and then the forwards in the second All-Star team for North 2, Sam Dowd of the Billingham Buccaneers, Paul Davis of Telford, and Vladimir Luka of Telford also makes the second All-Star team in the in North 2. In South 2, well, we've mentioned them a lot because they're usually on the end of something, but if we thought that it was one of those in South 1, and it's one of those in South 2 as well, the first team All-Stars in South 2, the netminder is Ethan Frayne of the Lee Valley Lions. He gets the first All-Star team. Nathan Long of the Peterborough of Peterborough Phantoms 2 is one of the defensemen alongside Jaden Bulcart of the Haringey Huskies. And the forwards in the first All-Star line, Nathan Pollard and Connor Pollard, both the Peterborough Phantoms 2, and Paul Petts of the Guildford Phoenix. The second All-Star line in South 2, Harry Thomas of the Cardiff Canucks. Of course, he's been playing a lot of National Division time as well with Bristol recently. Luke Tull of the Guildford Phoenix, Sam Oliver of the Invicta Mustangs, Aaron Ferris of the Invicta Mustangs is one of the forwards, along with Joe Edwards of the Oxford Rising Stars, and Jordan Ho of the Peterborough Phantoms 2 rounds out your second All-Star team in South 2. So there we go. Those are all the All-Star teams from across all the bits and pieces. You'll get the full rundown of bits and pieces tomorrow as well, because EIH are going to put out their stuff tomorrow. Is my understanding. You can see as well that having announced it here, you've got the lovely shiny graphics from the folk at the NHL National Division. They've put out some stuff. Now that's come out as well, which is what we're after. Just gonna apologies, yeah. Eventually, my throat will clear up, which is going to be interesting because I have having to commentate at the weekend. As you can appreciate, I've been having lots of hot honey lemons and lem sips. It's going to be my way of doing it. Let's fake chucking more things in the chat. Questions, comments, thoughts, feelings. What do we think of the All-Star teams? Who missed out? Who should have got in instead? What sort of bits and pieces do we think? What do we think of these playoff encounters? What are we going to see this weekend? Chuck those thoughts in the chat as Andrew currently rattles off the WNIHL scores for us from this past weekend. In the Elite League, the Solihull Vixens keep creeping towards the league title. This as they win by 7-2 against the Kingston Diamonds. It was 2-2 at the end of the second period. A 5-goal game from Great Britain's Jodie Alderson-Smith in that one. On Sunday in 1 North, a 2-2 tie between the Sheffield Shadows and the Caledonia Steel Queens. Thoughts on the playoff in the National, Anthony? Well, bear with me a second. Should we get the graphics back up? If I do that, and I press that button there, so we'll go backwards. Let's get those there. Whilst Andrew's chucking in a few more bits and pieces, we'll talk about the rest of the WNIHL in a moment, as Jamie's asked that question. So there are our two groups, folks. If you weren't in the know, for me, Group A looks a bit tougher than Group B, because for me, I am the big question mark. The big question mark is the thing is in Group B, is it's all too easy to say MK and Swindon make it through from Group B. Sheffield are too inconsistent, and Romford's form just seems to lurch from left to right. So it would be the easy thing to say, but it also does feel like it will probably be the right thing to say, because whilst the Lightning kind of did it again, they have been better at it this year in terms of holding on to those key moments. And I do think that MK will make it through this year where they didn't last year. If somehow they do not end up making it through, I do worry for Tim Wallace's job. Is the key one there. That first group is mad because one of Hull and Peterborough doesn't make it. Telford have just run the table, and look at Telford's form since sort of the end of since January has been absurd. When you think about it, right? So somebody in that group A, that to me looks like it's much more I have no idea who's making it through. I'm pretty certain Leeds are making it through, but I wouldn't. That second team is terrifying. But yeah, Group B I think has much more potential. Has the potential to be very, very dull, or it will be complete chaos. Because can you imagine if Milton Keynes and Swindon both don't make it, and Sheffield and Romford make it to Coventry off the back of playing off the back of playing 6 games, including 4, each of them playing, playing Swindon and MK in 4 games. That'd be bonkers stuff. Just having, but yeah, so there's a lot to be said there. If I'm asked to pin my colours to the mast, for me, Hull, Leeds, MK, Swindon. I realise that's just me saying the top 4, but actually I think this time around, for me, Telford I think are going to struggle because they may be out of gas having got this far. Peterborough, you can't count them out. I mean, Peterborough and Hull is probably the biggest coin toss of bits and pieces here. I just think MK will actually look like they've learned some lessons, and we'll get it over the line. And I think Swindon have just got a bit too much quality in their consistency that Swindon and Romford don't have, is what I'd say there. Click that button to come back. Other stuff from the WNIHL from last weekend. South won a 2-1 win for the Firebees over the Chelmsford Cobras on the Saturday. On the Sunday, the Battle of the Southwest. The Southwest goes blue as the Bristol Huskies win by 4-0 over the Swindon Topcats. In Division 2B, 4-1 win for the Chelmsford Pythons over the Coventry Phoenix, and a 5-1 win for the Invicta Dynamics against Bristol Huskies 2. On Sunday in Division 2A, a 6-1 win for the Solent Amazons over the Oxford Midnight Stars rounds out the results. Fixture-wise, in the Elite League this coming weekend, Whitley Bay take on Solihull on Saturday, and on Sunday the Kingston Diamonds take on the Whitley Bay Beacons, a double game weekend for Whitley Bay. 1 North on Sunday, Caledonia Steel Queens against the Solway Sharks Ladies. In 1 South, Saturday for the Swindon Topcats, they take on the Chelmsford Cobras, and the Firebees take on the Bristol Huskies. And on Sunday, the MK Falcons travel down to South Wales. They will take on the Cardiff Comets. Jamie says, for the semis for me, I've said for 10 days, Leeds versus Swindon, MK versus Peterborough. I think the thing that for me really massively depends on how Hull respond to what suspensions they're about to get. I think is the big one. Ultimately, they will have Sobchuk, they will have Svek, they will have Zimolstra, and that's, I think, potentially a playoff thing that people are not necessarily considering 100%. Dimitri Zimolstra in the playoffs. Well, the Belfast Giants, who were given a scare by the Fife Flyers, are now 10-4 up against Fife at home. Nottingham lead the Manchester Storm by 4-2. Guildford leading by the Clan by 5-3 at the end of the second up in Glasgow. And those two teams, of course, vying for position at the in the playoff spots. Both teams qualified, of course. But it's just a matter of who will finish 6th and who will finish 7th there. Oh, excuse me. Just checking the other news. 7:45 p.m. face-off on a Saturday night in Cardiff for Slavs going to suck. All the bits and pieces there. So Cardiff Fire is £11 for an adult, 6 for a concession, 3 for kids, or 24 quid for a family, 2 plus 2. That ain't bad. Or £6 as well if you're a Cardiff Devil season ticket holder. Never write off Slaven. No, I know, and that's the worrying thing about it is I want to. I really want to, but I shouldn't. It's like having the extra biscuit with your cup of tea. You shouldn't. You want to, but you shouldn't. It's not quite at Invicta Mustangs level. We never write off the Invicta Mustangs. No other news immediately leaping out of anything. As where are we? 20, just before 9:25, which we like. But yeah, got to do. So end of the regular season. We'll take more stock at the end. But not bad. Not a bad regular season. I could have done without missing the final weekend by being violently ill. But, got to do some cool stuff. And my regular season is not done. technically, because I am now commentating at Guildford for the next couple of weeks. So I will get the last 2 weekends of the regular season for the Flames, and I get the Flames home playoff game as well, which is pretty cool. And then Coventry, which is going to be awesome. It's going to be great to see everybody. But I get the nice bit of being able to kind of watch the National Division playoffs from a little bit of a distance, to then kind of go into it and commentate on it without too much, with as clear a head as I can possibly get, but also as well from a commentary position really, really sharp, because I'll have been running for about a month. It'll be, that'll be I'll be doing 4 games in 2 days, having done 3 Elite League games back to back. Will Cough be streamed? Yes, G. It's 100% being streamed. Is what on that front. It's 100% being streamed, so do not fret on that front. The no highlights were ever released from last year's playoffs. They were, because Peterborough put the final up on their YouTube channel, if you remember. The issue, I think, is that the streaming folk who do it are separate of the National Division. They're separate of VIH, and how they end up wanting to release stuff. But the final is on Peterborough's YouTube channel. They did put it there, so you can hear me and George Perrott from last year commentating on the final. It was certainly frustrating they never put out the Division 1 game, but we'll figure that one out. But yeah, it's all definitely 100% being streamed. No, I've been burnt too many times by Slava down the years. You and me both. The bane of hockey existence is Slava Kulikov. But yeah, should be looking forward to it all. Like I say, it's just been a rough week here. Which will be with illness and bits and pieces of that. It made me kind of appreciate the fact the weekend before I got to do so much cool stuff and kind of go everywhere. But it's kind of nixed as well when I think we were going to have do my Parma review, because I've got 2. So I want to get the wife's view on it too. Belfast won by 10 goals to 4. You'd hope 5 wouldn't have come back from that. Bonkers. The other thing, of course, we mentioned, as we do like to mention it from time to time, is that Liam Kirk is moving on in the DEL playoffs. The Eisbären Berlin have defeated the Straubing Tigers by 4 games to 1 in their opening series. So they're into the next round of the playoffs goes Liam Kirk and the Eisbären Berlin. Is it a case of when, not if, for Ivy to break the goal record? Yes, he's going to do it. He's 100% going to do it. I think at some point the Cats will just start setting him up. It doesn't matter. We're in the playoffs now. Just spend your time setting up Ovi. It's the only logical and reasonable thing to do. Now that is interesting. Is an hour ago, there was an update from Planet Ice, which I will read. Basingstoke Rink development update. This has come from Planet Ice from an hour ago. Planet Ice Basingstoke has now engaged a demolition team who are currently carrying out an extensive programme of works within the building. They're expected to be on site for a period of 2 to 3 weeks, clearing key areas in preparation for the remediation phase, which is due to begin in mid-April. During this time, no other works can take place while demolition is underway. This marks a significant and productive step forward in the development of the rink, and we will provide a further update once the demolition is complete. So basically that's them saying, you're not going to hear anything now for a couple of weeks. So be patient, I assume. But that is at least them poking their head above the parapet and saying something. But yeah, it was as ever, I refuse to get too happy too quick. I think it's probably my thing on that one. Like Jamie says, I've been burned too many times down the years. Right, last call. Questions, comments, thoughts, feelings, anything else that you want to chuck in? Get it in quick. But yeah, pretty cool, all in all. A big thank you, of course, to the NIHL management and England Ice Hockey for letting us announce the National Division All-Stars. That was pretty cool. Yeah, so we've managed to get a few bits and pieces. We've now had a director of England Ice Hockey on this show when it's been live. We've now had the All-Star teams done. We've broken news live. We get to do some weird stuff here on this show. But this is the thing. Every Wednesday night during the season, we are here. 8 o'clock. That's the plan. Come join us. If you're popping in for the first time, pop back again. It's generally good fun. We're going to be here through the playoffs and then just past the end of the season, and then we'll tell you what we do over the summer when that point comes. But yeah, last call. Questions, comments, thoughts, feelings. Get it all in quickly, and we will march our way onto what we are doing. But yeah, like I say, the playoffs start. Going to be exciting soon, for sure. And I get Guildford versus Nottingham. You're going to be also very, very interesting. Yeah, going to be good to be back to commentary. Haven't done any commentary since earlier. It's been the beginning part of this month when I did some in Romford, so it'll be good to get back to that. Looking forward to it. Looking forward to just kind of getting into the rhythm, and I get to have a nice rhythm now because I've got three. I've got 3 weeks to kind of get back up to it, and I get a playoff game as well, an Elite League playoff game too, which from a commentary perspective is pretty cool. I think it's really, really interesting. I also did the first competitive game of the season at Guildford, and I'll get to do the last, which is quite an interesting little bookend at the end of it, I think, all things considered. I have my own playoff preview coming out Friday night, if not Saturday night, if anyone wants to read. Fair enough, Jamie, that's cool. No dramas there. Right, it's 9:30 and I need to preserve my voice. We will call it there. Bannersonthewall.wordpress.com, your number one source for all things related to the NIHL. Join me on my weird, winding journey through British hockey for our Banners on the Road series. Long-form, in-depth reports from every game that I go to. You can also check out our Hockey Stories series, long-form, in-depth bits and pieces about the goings, about from topics from around the world of ice hockey. Some are audiovisual, some are written, but we go from the 19th century to the present day, behind the Iron Curtain, into war and beyond. 2 pieces coming up. They are going to be after the end of the season now, particularly because one of them I was writing about. There's a massive amount of development today, and that was that slightly scuppered me writing about it for a little bit at least. But we're working on it still. But there's all of that. There's the back catalogue of the old BOTW podcast and our free-to-download tabletop game, Dice Hockey, that you can play at home with bits around your house. And you now have 14 years of content from over on bannersonthewall.wordpress.com. All of us, so we are on X, we are on Facebook, we are on Blue Sky, all those wonderful bits and pieces. You can head down there into the description and check out all of the links to our socials, including the link to our virtual busking hat at buymeacoffee.com/BATW. Never going behind the paywall, but all we're saying is if you like the stuff that you get and you'd like to contribute to the upkeep of some of the bits and pieces that we do, server storage and so on and so forth, consider chucking a few quid into our virtual busking hat. That'd be appreciated. But all of those bits and pieces are down there in the description as well. If you want to get a lovely 3D sign like we've got here, like Lee made for us, you can go check those out in the description as well. But that is the joy of being on YouTube. The Banners on the Wall YouTube channel. Head down, subscribe to the channel, like the video, share the video, keep that algorithm hamster happy, fat and fed. And of course, if all else fails, whether it's on catch up or you can join us live every Wednesday night for YouTube's first, best and only show that covers all 5 divisions of the NIHL. We are the number one show for that, and nobody else has done it. We've done it all the way through every week without stopping. Every game of the NIHL covered from top to bottom, Leeds to Lee Valley. Nobody gets left out. That is Wednesday nights here on the BOTW What's Current stream. 14 years is a long time to do anything. I've been married nearly 15. I started this endeavour when I'd been married for 6 months. There are times where I've never lost the faith in it, but sometimes I've wondered what the direction is of it. And in some ways, actually, I'm even less sure of the direction now. But I said it the other day, and I mean it ever so much. Not a minute wasted. The weird journey that this sport has taken me on, and the Banners on the Wall as a creative endeavour takes me on, and I get to interact with all of you lot, is a privilege and just the best, and I really enjoy it. Thank you for 14 years. I don't know whether it's going to be another 14, but until the lights go out and the wheels fall off, we are going to keep on rolling along. Be happy, and if you can't be happy, then wherever you are, please do whatever you can to please be safe. As my friend Scotty Woz would say, take care of yourself and somebody else. For bannersonthewall.wordpress.com, this is Anthony Russell saying stay safe, and so long till next time. It is done. The regular season is done. Close the door, close the book, put it away. Put it in the library. The second season starts now. Enjoy your start to the playoffs, everybody. Enjoy your hockey where you find it. And join us back here next Wednesday night.